welcome. You're watching Business Today Television. I'm Sakshi Batra. Well, the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is all set to present the Union Budget of 2025 on 1st of February. Taxpayers, including the middle class and even the corporate India, are constantly looking for some tax reforms, revised income tax slabs, lower GST rates, regulatory updates and anticipation of various capex allocation and announcement. And amidst this, it's the common man in India that is seeking to ease some of their tax burden. So will this budget really ease that tax burden of the common man, or will there be some personal income tax changes, tax rates, tax slabs, or any new changes that you can expect in the old or the new tax regimes? Well, this is what we're going to be understanding with two of our experts joining in on this panel discussion. We are joined by Gauri Chadha, who's a tax expert on the panel, and we also have Mr. Sandeep Jhunjhunwala. He's a partner at Nangia Andersen, and both of them will give us the insight as to what could the upcoming budget document really entail. Warm welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for taking the time out. Gauri, starting off with you, I think taxation and tax relief is the biggest ask that has always been from the common man ahead of any union budget. We do see budget changes coming in, especially in the last couple of budgets. There have been many tweaks in the new tax regime to make it more appealing for more and more investors to take it. Last time around when you were with us on the budget, you did say that a lot of people are now getting accustomed and are appreciating the new tax regime for the ease that it is bringing about. This time around, what is it that you expect on the taxation front when it comes to personal taxes of the common man? What can we expect?
So, Sakshi, this time I'm expecting a lot of changes, especially in the personal tax rates and, basically increasing the basic exemption limit and maybe standard deduction or maybe rationalization of slab rates, which in turn will benefit the common man who is paying taxes on that higher rate, where in comparison to, of course, corporates and all that we'll be discussing is quite high. So I expect a lot of changes, especially because there's a slowdown in the economy, and to revive that, I think the government also wants to put in more money in the pockets of the consumers so that they can spend, and that gives a boost to the economy. More than that, I think it's been long that the basic exemption limit has been increased. Of course, the basic exemption limit was increased from 2.5 to 3 lakhs for the new regime. But according to me, it's actually nothing if we consider the inflation, because 2.5 lakhs is going on since 2014. So since 2014 till 2025, we can't be saying that there has been no inflation and only 50,000 has been given in the new regime and not on the old.
Right.
Although, of course, new regime is being opted ideally by the people, but still, I believe 3 lakhs is a very low figure. More than that, I think the highest lab rate, which goes up to 30%, is a lot for people who are earning above 15 lakhs also. So that
Yeah.
slab rate and higher slab rate should be rationalized.
Okay, got that. Hold that thought. We will come back to you, Gauri, on taking that point forward as well. But let's get in the first word out from Mr. Jhunjhunwala as well on that front. Do you also believe this is the right time that the government should be looking at bringing in some relief for the common man by way of either rationalization of the tax rates or the tax slabs when it comes to personal income tax this time?
Yes, of course, Sakshi, I do believe, and resonate with Gauri that, there is a definite need to rationalize the slabs to make it more inflation adjusted, because all said and done, the slabs that we currently have, and if you look at the corresponding tax rates, they probably don't align with the inflation rate that the country currently has. So there is a need there, but I would additionally, want to add a point that
Sure.
I think the government is probably naturally looking at a sunset for the old regime. Given the kind of investigations and the scanning that is happening on, some of the deductions and exemptions which are claimed by the salary taxpayers as recent as, yesterday, where, many of the taxpayers got a message on their phones that if they have rightly claimed Section 80 double G C related, deduction, which is related to donations made to political parties and electoral
Okay.
trust. So I think the
Okay.
government is trying to naturally show a sunset for the old regime, which would naturally mean that they probably may not relook at tinkering around the ATC or ATD or any other standard deduction which is there under the old regime itself. So maybe I feel
Means
that
you mean to
they may
say that there
possibly.
will be no tinkering in the old tax regime, so one should not have any expectations on either higher deductions on any of the sections that we are used to, because the government may actually be looking at slowly and gradually wiping out this. Could this happen this time around? Will that announcement come in that, probably this is the end of old tax regime, or will it be carried on for some more years?
My hunch, Sakshi, here is that maybe probably the government will show some sunset date around the old tax regime, because largely, we have seen that around 72% of the taxpayers are already under the new regime, and it's only close to around 28%, and that's the statistics which is last released by the PIB. So maybe they will look at a larger segment of the taxpayers already opting under the new tax regime and try and see if they can maybe probably optimize the standard deduction under the new regime, increase it a bit further, which definitely is the ask of the taxpayers even under the new regime. But I don't see too many changes around exemptions and deductions which are available under the old regime.
Okay. Gauri, let me come back to you. You did say that you expect rationalization of the tax slabs and the rates as well. That is something that you're looking at, especially when it comes to the highest rate. Now, this has been a long time ask. When the government has been reducing the corporate tax rate, they're not looking at the highest tax slab of the personal income of individuals right there. What is it that you expect that could come in? Could the surcharge be removed? Could it be right there on the slab rate at the highest level? What exactly could come in?
Sakshi, the direct tax itself is a progressive tax. So I believe the people who are earning a higher amount should be paying high tax. So my concern would never be surcharge, which has been reduced already. So I believe if they increase the surcharge, I'll be more than happy. The tax rate till 2025 lakhs should be reduced. So first of all, the slabs, of course, they are quite confusing, and I think people still don't understand that
Yeah.
how they are paying as per the slab. They believe that if they are earning 20 lakhs, their whole income is taxed at 30%. Mostly people understand it like that, which is not the case. Now if we have so many slabs, it is causing confusion. Secondly, the first slab starts from 3 lakhs. If we are talking about new regime, of course, even I believe old regime is outdated and will be taken out very soon. So, if in the new regime, it is 3 lakhs. Now, after that, it goes to 5, then it goes on higher or to a higher level. Now, people who are earning 8 or 10 lakhs are paying taxes, whereas, corporates who are the people who are running businesses are not paying any as such tax on such amount because they know how to save tax. So my concern is especially for the salaried class, where you get your form 16, your TDS is deducted and you don't have any way to save tax, whereas in old regime you still had some ways to save tax, and also because of this compulsory saving your retirement was secured. Now if we are opting for new regime, there's hardly any tax saving. People are not doing it because they are not saving any tax. They don't understand that their retirement is not secured and the government is not giving you any benefit when you retire. I'm talking about the private sector. So the slab should be little more. So maybe ideal slab would be till 10 lakhs or 5 lakhs no income, above 5 to 15 5%, and above 15 you can go up to 2025. But it has to be brought down from, in comparison to at least corporate tax rate. The highest slab rate in personal should be aligned with that.
Okay, got that. Let me also bring in Mr. Jhunjhunwala here. When it comes to direct taxes, there is a lot of undercurrent and a buzz about whether there could be an announcement of a direct tax code coming in, changes and overhauling of the entire tax structure that we have. Do you think that is warranted at this point in time? I mean, looking at the recency bias, what we've seen with GST, what we've seen with indirect taxes, do you think people have got used to, have things improved on ground on indirect taxes front, and are we ready to look at an overhauling of the direct taxes at this point in time?
So I think definitely there is a need for overhauling of the direct tax code, similar to what the country experienced on the GST side, 8 years back. I think the government never announced recently on the direct tax code coming in. I think what was formally announced is only a simplification of the income tax provisions, and I'm sure that maybe in this current budget, the finance minister may probably lay a roadmap for that. So there is a need for simplifications. There are multiple aspects on the income tax side that needs simplification, both on the personal income tax side as well as on the corporate income tax side. My only point here would be that maybe the policy framers should look at one aspect, that if you look at an example of the Companies Act that was overhauled in 2013, or if you look at a GST which was overhauled in 2017, today the amendments that came subsequent to the main act are much more than what is there as a part of the main statute itself. I mean, multiple notifications, circulars, amendments. So maybe they should take a little more time to look at the aspects which require simplification, but those changes or enhancements should be made in the bare act itself, rather than releasing something half baked and then topping it up with multiple notifications and amendments at a later point in time. I think that complicates the task for the professionals as well as the public and the corporates who have to abide by the law, both on the income tax side as well as on other laws.
Okay, Gauri, let me bring you in and your view here on the direct tax code. What is it that the government could look to do? What is the need of the hour at this point in time? Where do you think the government really needs to overhaul the structure?
See, I think this direct tax code we are listening since a lot of like years. Like I think since
Yeah.
2009, this tax committee has been formed, and there has been like reports which have been submitted. But I feel that this budget won't have a something like direct named as direct tax code, but maybe they will call it as a new income tax act. This may have changes, a lot of changes. If this is the case, then I believe that the old regime will be taken out for sure, and definitely they will look at making the act simpler. And of course, if the aim is to make it simpler, then like Sandeep said, then you have to do it in one go. You can't be releasing notifications and circulars every now and then, and which I was reading before the show that there are chances that this might happen. Even for standard deduction, I was reading that there are chances that the standard deduction may become a flexible figure, like they
Okay.
won't change in every budget, and maybe it will be inflation adjusted every year. Now
Okay.
if this is the case, I think it will make it more complicated. Whereas the goal of the new Direct Tax Act should be to make it simpler and to reduce litigation. These two things should be the main concern for the budget right now. But if it happens like this, what we were just discussing, I don't think so it will solve the purpose.
Okay. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, where else can simplification of tax filing, probably tax forms could be done? What exactly needs to be simplified thus far? A lot of things have already been done, something that even Gauri was mentioning, that every year we've been seeing some changes. The goal has been to simplify taxation, tax filing, and to reduce litigation. Where do you think the government really needs to step in right now to further simplify this from the existing space where we are at?
So I think one important area probably to really could be the TDS provisions, Sakshi. So if you look at the TDS provisions or the withholding tax provisions under the Income Tax Act, there are too many sections, too many tax rates, too many conditions under each of the withholding tax conditions, and of course the base rate after the base amount after which those sections kick in. So there is a need to simplify the withholding tax provisions, definitely, because a lot of corporates even struggle to figure out which are the withholding tax provisions which are applicable to them and what they need to comply with when they are making payments to vendors under different categories. So I think that definitely is one of the area that requires a bit of simplification and overhauling. The second, as you were mentioning, is in terms of the filings. I think there are just too many filings which currently exists under the provisions of the Income Tax Act. So I think there is a definite need to relook, and I think some of the surveys which have been done by industry bodies also indicate that startups, especially the new age startups, find it extremely complicated to abide by the multiple filings that the income tax laws require them to do. So this is the second area. The third area could definitely be in terms of easing up the litigation, which means that currently there are a lot of appeals which are pending before the first appellate forum, which is the Commissioner of Income Tax Appeals level, and then moving up to the tribunal and the High Court. So there is definitely a need to fast track that process and maybe introduce more amnesty schemes or more dispute resolution schemes where maybe the pressure on the judiciary and the tribunals can also reduce. And this is also important because almost 20% of the money gets locked up for the corporates, because this is a pay to play amount that they have to pay before they pursue any litigation before the income tax authorities. I mean, that's 20% is the bare minimum that one has to pay to pursue a litigation further, and that gets locked in for a quite good amount of years. So probably there's a need to relook at easing up the pressure on the litigation side by maybe looking at the provisions a little more closely for dispute resolution as well as for amnesty.
Got that. Gauri, bringing you in on the simplification factor, do you think even the ITR forms that have been simplified still need more simplification? Does anything need to be done on that account at least?
I believe, Sakshi, that could be done only when the laws are simpler. If the laws are complicated, the form can never be simple. For example, if the deductions are a lot, like if we have 10 deductions in the act, that form will have those 10 columns or those pages to cater to them. So if we reduce the deduction part, which the government has already done, although it has a negative side to it as well, but if we have less complicated law itself, the form will be simpler. And I believe that over the years, the forms have been made simpler, and the process of return filing has improved. The timeline has improved. The returns are now processing at a faster pace. Although there are few cases where still the returns are processed quite late, but mostly refunds are given within time. So in that aspect, I think we are on a good road. But a simpler law will further lead to simpler forms, and lower tax rate will lead to more tax collection, because when the tax rate is simple, the process of filing return is simple, I believe more and more people will uh, come out and pay taxes, those who are not doing right now, because they don't want to pay so much tax, they have that option to evade tax also. And more than that, I believe that they don't want to give their information to the government, not knowing that now the government has all the information from various sources, which maybe you believe that you are hiding from the government, but they have it. So even people like those who have that thought process will come out and file the return.
Absolutely. Point very well taken right there, Gauri. Another space that, people would want to know is what happens to the LTCG and the STCG. Last time around, there was a lot of, debate around why the government is increasing the taxes as far as the investments in stock markets are concerned. And they have further raised this, even though there was no knee-jerk reaction as such, but we have actually seen the markets come off quite a bit from the time the last budget announcements came in on this front. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, starting with you, your sense of whether any tweaks could be done, or is there still a fear that this could probably go up further?
I frankly speaking don't see any further reduction in taxes, because I think even after the increase in taxes for both the categories, which is LTCG and STCG, I think there was probably the market sentiment hitting only on the budget day and maybe 1 or 2 days later, but maybe the market players then got probably used to it. So I don't see a reduction in the taxes there, but maybe if the government is looking at simplification, they should take cognizance of the fact that there are just way too many asset classes
Yeah.
to identify for both LTCG and STCG, and again it comes with a lot of conditions and period of holding, etc. So they may probably look at overhauling the regime both on LTCG as well as on STCG for this multiple asset categories that one has from an Indian context, because as I said, it's very difficult for a common man to decode
It's
the
very
asset category
complex.
and the period of holding and the rate of taxes which are applicable. So that's probably one ask that everyone has if we are looking at a simplification also from a capital gains tax perspective.
Yes, very important. Gauri, I'll bring you in. Something that Mr. Jhunjhunwala rightly points out. Too many asset classes. If the government really wants investors and taxpayers to move to the new tax regime, that means they want to they want the common people to take decisions of what they would want to do with the money in their hands. Now, if they were to select various asset classes to invest in, today you have mutual funds, you have direct stocks, you have gold, you have real estate, and all of these attract different tax rates. All of these have different tenures of long term and short term. So the definition is very complicated. So everybody has to keep going back to the chartered accountants like yourself to really understand whether they are actually filing the right taxes for each of the asset classes. What do you think needs to be done here?
Yes, so Sakshi, definitely you are absolutely right. But if we see, this confusion was definitely there and it is still there. But if we see the last budget, there were changes in this. The other asset class apart from equity was seen to be getting in line with other asset classes. So we can hope that this government probably will make it more simpler, and I can see that already happening. The main concern would be the tax rate and the indexation a bit, because after that indexation amendment, which of course was reversed to a certain extent in the act, and we now have two options for the residents. But if we buy property after 23rd July, we still don't have indexation
Yes.
benefit. That
Yes.
is something which should be looked into, apart from the apart from the high tax rate which was introduced last budget. But I believe that of course the tax collections has been a lot because of the increased rate, and even STT collections have been a lot. But because it was increased in last budget itself, I don't think so they can bring it down, because it will be something like accepting that it should not have been done. And increasing that will not make any sense, because already the collections are too high. And I personally don't think that this high rate has went well with the investors. I don't think so people are appreciating this high rate. And probably in the coming years we should see some reversal in this, where maybe we can go back to 10% on equity, or maybe lesser. So
Okay.
these are the things where I believe that you can see something.
Okay. We have discussed quite a bit of personal income tax, but let's also discuss whether there is any scope for the government to make changes when it comes to the corporate tax in India, and is it needed as well at this point in time? Mr. Jhunjhunwala, from your side, what do you think is the top ask from the corporates as far as taxation is concerned right now? Could there be any changes there?
So, Sakshi, I think the first task definitely is on easing up the litigation timelines, because a lot of cases are piled up at the first appellate levels and beyond. So, corporates definitely look at a cycle which is much more faster. That's the first task. Second is, currently there is a need to pay 20% of the disputed amount of the tax, which arises under a litigation, to pursue the litigation further. So definitely that 20% seems to be much higher, because what we have seen is that even on the settled issues, there are litigations. For instance, on ESOP taxation, whether that expense could be allowed as a allowable business expense for the corporates. There are divergent views from the judiciaries, and this kind of issues keep surfacing up for the corporates. So therefore, the ask has been that this 20% should at least be reduced to 20%. The other important ask that we have seen is around 43BH, which was introduced recently. I think that has again become a bone of contention for the corporates. Instead of easing up that collection cycle for the MSMEs, they are actually trying to discontinue relationships with MSME, because if the payments are not made within the timelines which are stipulated under the act, it becomes as an expense which is not allowable. So I think probably the government needs to relook at that provision, particularly to see that it comes out with the intended benefits, and it doesn't fall for MSMEs not to be doing business with the larger corporates.
Absolutely. We'll bring in Gauri also right there on that front. Gauri, what we have actually seen is that as a pain point for the economy, private capex has just not gone up. Now, there have to be some reasons why we are absolutely not seeing private capex really going. So far, the economy has been propped up because of the government spends. Now, in case the government even wants to curtail some of the spends right there, it's just not getting possible because the growth overall is reducing right there. So, there is more and more ask for private capex to also bring in. What do you think the government really needs to do? Anything from the taxation point of view on corporates that could spur private capex?
See, there would be 2 points. One is that I don't believe that the tax rates should be further reduced, because I think that the corporate tax rate right now is already at a very low level,
Okay.
especially if we compare with the personal tax rate. Now, the problem is that people who want to invest in their businesses, they want to set up industries, they want to, produce something, or they want to start something, but they are definitely ready to put in money, but the consumption is so low that it won't make any sense if they start their industries. So I think making consumption more, it should be the aim of the government. Apart from that, the compliance part is a very big issue, because people who want to set up industries in our country, or our residents who want to set up industries in the country, are facing a lot of problems, especially from the departments, because all the licenses, the incorporation, and dealing with the GST department, even for a small thing, is becoming really difficult. So all this compliance part, and of course litigation part, is a very big challenge for people right now. So I think this should be looked into, apart from making consumption more, so by maybe reducing the personal tax rate.
Induce demand and boost consumption, that seems to be the one big ask at this point in time. I'll come to both of you for closing comments now. Mr. Jhunjhunwala, what do you think, according to you, will be a deal maker or a deal breaker in this budget when it comes to taxation, either on the personal income taxes front or on the corporate side? What is the big one ask that you think needs to be adhered to in the budget immediately?
See, I think what we have experienced in the last 1 decade is that the personal income tax collection have gone up almost 5x from what it
Yeah.
was in 2014 until now. And as Gauri briefly mentioned, we already have seen personal income tax collections going beyond what the corporate income tax collections are. So in some sense, a large part of the government's tax collection is now coming from personal income tax and not from corporate income tax. So I think a big ask would be to see how we can increase the tax base. Now, what we have seen as statistics from the PIP is that almost there are close to around 7.2, you know, taxpayers who are filing their returns. We have out of that 7.2, around 2.5 crore income taxpayers who are actually paying taxes. Now, that 2.5 over the population base of India, which is around 140 crore, is too minuscule. Now it's for the government probably to see how do they need to increase that tax base. I know it's not a very easy territory to,
Incentivize. I think reward people who are paying taxes. That I think should be on top of the minds. I think that will probably spur a lot of people to come back into the tax bracket, something which is missing at this point in time. Instead, the government is going on squeezing the taxpayers.
Absolutely. I think what we get as reward from the government is only those silver and gold and platinum category certificates that come to us in our email. I think there is definitely a need to relook at that point, and maybe some of the exempt category of income, try and bring them into tax, obviously subject to certain riders. Like, say for instance, if there is a particular exempt income which is beyond 10 crore or 15 crore, I think those category of income definitely needs to be brought within the tax net.
Okay, Gauri, to you, the last word. What exactly needs to be done right now with the taxation part?
So I have a lot of expectations from this budget, and I think that this budget might be a game changer. But of course, the basic ones which should be done, and I have high hopes with these two, three things. First is higher standard deduction and higher slab rate, higher basic threshold limit of the
Quantify
basic
that for
exemption.
us also, Gauri. What do you expect?
Sorry.
Quantify that for us as well. What do you expect there?
For standard deduction, I believe it should be at least 1.5 lakhs, because we are not getting any other deduction in the new regime. And what sources are saying, I believe you would be knowing better, that we might have some inflation adjusted standard deduction, which should not be the case according to me. But if that comes in, at least we are getting some relief. So this should definitely come in, some changes with the standard deduction and increase in slab rate. And apart from that, I'm expecting a lot of changes in this budget, and let's see on 1st February how much we get.
Absolutely, it's always a question of waiting and watching. The watch list and the kind of wish list is always long, but what comes through is something that we will have to discuss as well. Well, on this point, I'd like to thank both of you, Sandeep and Gauri, for sharing with us those insights as far as what the common people of India can expect in the upcoming budget. Yes, there could be changes, is something that we know. What changes will come in what form will come in, we'll have to wait and find out. But yes, the government is looking at, a tax relief of some sort to boost consumption, to boost demand, is the big ask at this point in time. And in case the government can do that by giving more money in the hands of people, that will be definitely seen as a positive right there. But of course, the larger issues on corporate taxes side and on personal income taxes side, compliance, litigation, all of them also remain to be seen. How much more simplification will come in will definitely be a talk point and debate. We will continue. This is a topic that actually requires a lot more discussion as well. But for now, we'll wind up on this one, but we will come back post the budget to really help you understand how things have really taken shape. All right, viewers, we'll wind it up at that, but do stay tuned. Business Today Television is doing, the whole day coverage as far as pre-budget expectations are concerned. We are getting you experts from all walks, from all industries, sectors, and experts who are really analyzing what could be coming in the upcoming budget, so that you know what's in store for you and me. All right, with that, we wrap up, but do stay tuned on Business Today Television.